Coming up on Aging Matters, Aging in Place.
Our parents did. They worked hard, they saved their money, and they bought their home. My mother would say, I plan to die in my home. I wish the same for myself, but I don't know if it'll be that way.
According to AARP, 87% of Americans say they want to stay in their home as they age. But staying at home is not as easy as it sounds.
American society tells us that the premier experience in old age is to remain in your own home no matter what. It's actually often a terrible situation for people who stay in their home no matter what.
We tried to take care of my mother as long as we possibly could in the home. There were not the resources. And at some point, there can be a difference between what they actually want and what's possible.
Everyone has expectations about what life will be like as they age. But what happens when those expectations meet reality?
Most people think they're going to drive to their own funeral. You know, it's just going to drive. But it's not what happens. People live a decade after they make the decision to stop driving.
If you've had a car and you have driven it all your life and suddenly do without it, you're just lost.
Here we go.
You lose your freedom to come and go.
I think ultimately what people want is just choices. They want to have control over their situation as much as possible.
Living alone and living in a home is quite a challenge. Our hope here is just not to be forgotten. We just want to be remembered. That's it.
Major funding for NPT Report's Aging Matters is provided by Cigna Health Spring, lead sponsor of NPT Report's Aging Matters. The West End Home Foundation, support in the care of seniors through many organizations in Middle Tennessee. The HCA Foundation on behalf of TriStar Health. The Jeanette Travis Foundation, dedicated to improving the health and well-being of the Middle Tennessee community. Additional funding provided by the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee and by members of NPT. Thank you.
It's what most of us say we want, to age in our own home until the end of our lives. Aging in place is typically more affordable than living in a nursing home, but aging in place is no guarantee of a high quality of life. As we age, our needs may change. Will we be able to climb the stairs, reach those upper cabinets, and manage the upkeep a home requires? And what about our community? Are there sidewalks? Is there transportation? And are there services to meet the needs of everyday life? Staying in your home may mean living alone. Some studies suggest social isolation can be as damaging to your health as smoking or obesity. What makes a place ideal for aging? What are our options? Have we prepared enough to make them work? In this edition of Aging Matters, we will look at aging in place and learn what it takes to make our ideals match the reality. Join us.
I was born in 1913. I'm a little over 101. I have a birthday in September.
Edith Jennings lives the way most of us say we want to, in her own home.
It's just me, just the way I've always been. Independence is important. I can do what I want to, when I want to. But on the other hand, I'm very careful.
Mrs. Jennings is fortunate to have family close by when she needs them.
I know that I could not live here without Jan and Paul being nearby. I have to ask my son to get the groceries for me, or my daughter-in-law. She's real good at that. I don't have to have people around me all the time. I like solitude. I like to be alone a lot. I will read and just walk and think.
Living at home is not without challenges or risk. A recent fall has made stairs dangerous to navigate, and while the house is on one level, there are steps to get out the front door which limit things, like Edith Jennings' daily contact with the world outside. Her newspaper.
The newspaper is something that I grew up with. That's an important part of living. I can't read the newspaper if I can't get it. It's in the front yard. I don't see people that often. I have to have the newspaper to tell me what's happening. I like to know what's going on in the world.
Edith Jennings is aware of her limitations and that her situation could change. But for now, if the paper is in the box on the porch and she can manage her own routine, she is content.
I do enjoy living here. I will stay here until I die. But if I get to the place where I have to go to bed all the time, I don't want to stay here because that means I have to get somebody in. And that's hard to do. I would have to move then.
What's your coffee, dear?
Great. Most people, when they think about their lives, see a quality of life that involves a home that they love, surrounded with family or friends that they love, and the picture doesn't include what does that mean if I lose some function, or I have mobility challenges, or I develop a complex health condition. We know that people with very complex health conditions can continue to live at home till they die, if that is their choice. But if we haven't figured out how to support them and the economic resources are not available, it becomes very difficult to stay on track with that dream and that vision.
Aging in place is really the system that helps older adults stay in one place as they age. And so to do that, services and supports have to be brought to them. Some of that involves technology, some of that is home modifications, and then of course there needs to be a support system of people to enable them to stay where they want to be. Knowing what the right services are, finding people that you can trust, having technology in your home or having strangers in your home can become more complicated than people really think.
My mother was a high school dropout that went back to school, and this has afforded her to be able to obtain this house.
It's easy to understand why Aurelia Dooley would want to stay in her home as she ages. It's been home since she was a child.
These were homes that people had worked hard for, built, took pride in. My mother would say, "You're not putting me in a nursing home. I plan to die in my home." This was known, and we didn't question it. My parents did get that wish. They stayed in this same home until their deaths. I wish the same for myself, but I don't know if it'll be that way. Will I have the mental capacity and faculties to be able to stay in my home, to be able to manage it? On a fixed income, will I be able to meet the demands that this house calls for? Will I be able to make improvements as needed? Will I be able to pay my bills? So these are some of the issues that await me as I age.
If aging in place is the goal, there are a lot of questions to answer and plans to make. Unfortunately, many decisions around where and how one adapts once they need some assistance are made in a state of crisis.
The typical crises that we hear about can be hospitalizations, either from a fall or maybe a heart condition that results in a hospitalization, and then the hospital or a rehab facility says, "I don't think it's going to be safe for you to go back home. You need to examine other options." Sometimes it may be the loss of a spouse that triggers the phone call to get more help or to begin to plan for these things. If the spouse was particularly involved in managing the household activities.
As an aging life care manager, Gretchen Napier consults with families about their options.
If the person is no longer driving, how are they going to get to their social activities, church, bingo, synagogue, dinners out with friends? That also includes meals then, who's going to purchase the food, and then also who's going to prepare it at home. Medications become a really important piece to that. Who's going to get to the doctor's offices, and how will they get there? Who's going to be able to remember what happens at the doctor's office? There's a laundry list of things that become a concern if cognitively or physically the older adult is not able to do those things for themselves.
Every family and community has a different set of resources to draw from. With the growing number of older Americans, will there be enough resources to go around? Kathleen O'Donohue lives in a rural part of Tennessee where the community has no option but to make aging in place work.
So you have a choice. You can either age in home and figure out how to get the support services you need if you need help, or you move away.
O'Donohue looked at models around the country to see how others were coping with a growing need.
Individuals all over the country were doing exactly what the community of Suwanee was doing. We have more people aging than we ever have had before. People are living longer, so it's not that people did a bad job planning, just they did not realize that the lifespan was going to change so dramatically, so quickly, and the resources are stretched everywhere.
The town of Suwanee latched onto something called the Village Movement, and in 2008 created a cooperative nonprofit called Folks at Home, a place folks can call when they need help.
Folks at Home is made up of paying members and of volunteers, of vetted vendors. We do information and referrals, we connect community, and we help coordinate access to services. What I believe is that the community connections are the most important thing we have. The community is our resource.
In essence, memberships to Folks at Home collectively reduce the cost of support and help each other stay at home for longer than they might otherwise. It sounded like a good idea to Karen and Bob Keel when they signed up to volunteer a few years ago.
When you live in a small community like Suwanee, you're kind of on the watch, I think, for what makes the community better.
We wanted to volunteer ourselves to provide services to people who were subscribing to Folks at Home.
When Bob faced a new health complication, the Keels realized they would need Folks at Home services themselves sooner than they had expected.
The principal thing that it has done for us since my health problems have arisen is providing us with things that we need, like a wheelchair, a walker, a cane. Those are things that make living at home easier.
He was in the hospital last fall for a month. We realized that when he got out, I would need some help. And I went to Kathleen and asked her, what am I to do now?
Folks at Home recommended a network of qualified professional caregivers that the Keels could trust.
Good morning. Come in.
Someone first thing in the morning comes in, helps him get going in the day, and someone comes and spends the nights because he's often up during the night, and it lets me get sleep so I'm ready for the next day.
Okay, we're going to do some stretches. Tell me when you feel a good stretch in the back of your leg.
I think it would be likely that we would look to leave Suwanee if we had not the help that we need, which we're now getting. I think it would be immeasurably more difficult everyday life without those services.
There you go.
Kathleen has found many of the services people need to stay in their homes are relatively simple but important for daily life.
For an example, a woman had hip surgery 2 weeks ago, and she's now home alone, and she needs somebody to help with some simple things, just like helping her get her kitty litter, helping her keep her floors clean, helping her wash the windows. Simple things that need to be done. And if you think, is there a reason why a person has to leave their home for simple chores like that?
Not every community has something like Folks at Home, and not all challenges remain simple. Today, across the U.S., unpaid caregivers, typically family members, provide around 80% of the long-term services and supports elders receive. There comes a point where a balance must be found between honoring the wishes of a loved one and providing the level of care needed.
My mother was very adamant. She wanted to stay at home. She wanted to pass away in her house. It was an inordinate amount of stress on the entire family. She had breast cancer and it had metastasized to the brain. As her illness progressed, it became more and more difficult to take care of her. We really needed a 24/7 nurse. We didn't have the resources for that. Mother was very sick. The main thing that was so difficult for us was managing her medications. She was taking so many medications, and many of them we knew to be dangerous.
Tim Coulter and his family finally relented to moving his mother to a residential hospice facility.
My mother was very adamant. She wanted to stay at home. She wanted to pass away in her house. Unfortunately, there were not the resources, and at some point, responsible adults will not let a person lay in their own feces and with the illness and not eat and be non-compliant. It becomes abusive to the patient. There can be a difference between what they actually want and what's possible.
I'll tell you, for many years, my medical practice was engaged by the county to do adult protective investigations in the home. And I can tell you that there are more terrible things happening to elders in their own homes than in all the nursing homes of America, okay? Aging in place is not some perfect utopia. It's often very difficult, dangerous, isolating, hungry, frightening experience for many older people. It has all of the charm and excitement of avoiding drowning. How long can you tread water until your head goes under? That's the aging in place question.
The consequences of social isolation are very serious. We know that isolation increases the incidence of most psychiatric disorders, depression, anxiety, other kind of disorders, fearfulness. If you think about what causes the isolation, one is a reduction in seeking out other people, which occurs naturally with aging. The other issues are the physical challenges of isolation, the ability to get places you need to get. Thirdly is family isolation, where you have family migrating away from parents and grandparents, and then a loss of the day-to-day connection and vitality that families provide for seniors.
Regardless of where someone lives as they age, pressures of isolation increase dramatically once they can no longer drive.
I've been without a car about 7 years, long enough to know that I miss it. When you move into a place, assisted living place, if you don't have any way to go anywhere, you're just there. I've heard people say the walls close in on you after so long a time. You lose your freedom to come and go.
When Ann Blackwell wants to go somewhere,
good morning,
she calls her son-in-law, who recently retired from a career with the Tennessee Department of Transportation.
Watching my mother-in-law move from her car to not being able to have her car has been a very revealing experience for someone like me who has spent a lot of time in the transportation field. Oh, perfect. What if we weren't there? How many are there out there that don't have a network to provide services for them?
Ed Cole started looking for a solution that would meet all the needs of a senior without a car.
Okay, you ready to go? It has to be accessible, it has to be affordable, it has to be accountable, it has to be reliable. The very same things that we would have said, well, that car takes care of all that for us. You go all through that criteria, my car does that for me.
Hello, ITN Bluegrass. This is Laura. May I help you?
One solution that meets all those criteria can be found at work in Lexington, Kentucky, where an affiliate of the Independent Transportation Network, or ITN, connects seniors to volunteer drivers.
They said it was going to rain this afternoon, maybe, or snow or sleet, something happy like that.
For people like Judy Worrell, ITN provides more than just a ride.
Part of aging is feeling dependent.
I used to have a car.
Well, you used to have a car.
Them good old days.
Yeah.
I was a very active person. I traveled. I did all kinds of things. And I could come and go when I want. And here, all of a sudden, I'm stuck in the house. It was terrible not to be able to drive. I felt helpless. I felt angry. I can't remember how I found ITN, but it's a blessing. It's an absolute blessing.
Today, Judy Worrell is using ITN Bluegrass to get to an exercise class. She calls the dispatching service just like she would a cab, though it's cheaper if she calls a day in advance. When the driver arrives, she provides arm-through-arm, door-through-door service wherever Judy Worrell wants to go. No payment is exchanged, no tipping allowed. A dispatcher logs the miles of each trip, which are deducted from the account of the rider and credited to the account of the driver. ITN is sustainable because the drivers know they are supporting something they will need for themselves down the road.
These are wonderful people, and I don't feel so helpless anymore. I got over my anger. It changed my life. These are not just drivers. I am developing important relationships with these people. It releases me from being isolated and lonely. And I'm not lonely, because I can always look forward to doing something and having them take me places.
Until there is something like ITN in Nashville, people like Ann Blackwell will have to wait until family is available, if family is available, to catch a ride.
To have one person and one car to take you wherever you want to go would be very, very nice, I just tell you. We need something like that, we really do. There's no other transportation. We need something that would come and pick us up and take us and bring us back.
I think of the transportation system like a vascular system for the community. And it's the piece that always gets forgotten. And I know every community doesn't have an ITN, but every community has people with cars parked in their driveways. And if they would think about, notice that there are older people around them who could use a ride and offer them a ride, you don't have to do anything but open your eyes and notice that there are human beings around you and you could offer them a ride. It's as simple as that.
What I've encouraged people I work with to think about isn't aging in place, but aging in community. The thing that protects elders is community. The thing that holds elders up and allows them to be who they're meant to become is community.
Community can seem like a lost art, but one Nashville neighborhood has maintained its roots more than perhaps any other.
When I wave at my neighbors, I mean it. When we say good morning, we mean it.
In College Hill, you will find homes with people like Aurelia Dooley, who grew up, stayed, and remained connected to each other for over 50 years, even amongst rapid growth all around. But change is inevitable.
Our neighborhood is aging, yes. We have neighbors now that require assistance. We have neighbors that they have certain needs. They have health care needs. They have transportation needs. They can no longer drive.
Aurelia Dooley and others in the College Hill Neighborhood Association have taken it upon themselves to continue the legacy of their neighborhood, taking care of each other.
You doing okay, Dr. Williams?
As a nurse, Dooley provides what she can when she can.
Part of being a nurse is being able to assess a situation and seeing specifically what your patient needs. And sometimes they don't need blood pressure, they don't need health care. They need somebody to go to the store for them and do grocery store runs. That's a biggie. You have to remember that we have been neighbors for over 50 years up here. These neighbors that I remember used to help me with my math in the evenings. They would help me with my science. They were devoted and committed to seeing that children got what they needed. So in the scheme of things, I'm trying to give back.
The opportunity here is for people to really get thoughtful and become intentional about what they want as they age. Learn about the resources in the community, engage with your family. We don't have enough conversations in this country about what it means to be able to age in place, what it means to be able to have your needs met.
There's nursing home, assisted living, home care. Basically the three buckets. What I want to see is a system where you get to have a long-term care that's suited to you rather than you forcing yourself to suit yourself to the long-term care that's available.
You do not age out of usefulness. You are always a valuable asset to your community. People are important both for their knowledge and their skills to give back to the community and to mentor new people coming up in the community. We want a diverse community of people of all ages.
Regardless of where we choose to age, what is important is a high quality of life. As our nation ages, we need more options to make sure our homes and communities support daily life in a way that retains our independence. The time to start thinking and talking about what quality of life means to you is now, and it's a conversation you'll need to revisit often. To learn more about Aging Matters, visit our website at wnpt.org/agingmatters.
Major funding for NPT Report's Aging Matters is provided by Cigna Health Spring, lead sponsor of NPT Report's Aging Matters. The West End Home Foundation, support in the care of seniors through many organizations in Middle Tennessee. The HCA Foundation on behalf of TriStar Health. The Jeanette Travis Foundation, dedicated to improving the health and well-being of the Middle Tennessee community. Additional funding provided by the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee and by members of NPT. Thank you.